All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 10th meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust. We are a hybrid meeting, so I'm going to have to call on everybody by name and a roll call. So starting with Matt Often,
Often it's here.
Eric Swenson,
Swenson here.
Brittany,
Morgan here.
and Dan.
Here.
And then we're waiting on Ed, but when he comes in, we'll make sure we note that he's actually in the formal meeting. All right, so I have on the agenda tonight at 165 Worcester Street. There are no real updates for that particular project. They're still working some details out as we go. So we can skip over that one and move into, we have two like major items tonight. John Grant and Michelle McGregor are here from the GSX project update for 27 Worcester Street, which we talked about a little bit last week. So, just to bring everybody up to speed, and I just want to spend about 10 or 15 minutes on this to reintroduce it. I told everybody last meeting, the deal with Beacon is no longer there. They're kind of resetting the wheel, so I wanted to make sure that they had the opportunity to come in, reintroduce themselves, and then just to re-identify the project. You got a bunch of information in your packet from them. Project pursuit budgets, some elevations and things like that. What I really want to make sure we do is just give them a couple minutes to reintroduce the project. And if you have any questions with the amount of material that you got kind of offloaded on you, will help you digest any of that information just to get it out there. And then we're going to, see if we want to get the project started again. So, while we have you here, John and Michelle, whichever one of you wants to take it away, and just introduce yourselves, please, and just kind of walk us through, briefly, where the project's going now in Upton Street.
It looks like we've lost John.
I'll just introduce myself really quickly because I'll let John kind of take it away. But hi, everyone. I'm Michelle McGregor, and I'm the COO of GSX Ventures. We love Grafton, and we are really excited about this project. And as you know, the markets have been up and down, and so John's going to explain all that to you. But we've been able to work with a lot of really great partners, and there's a lot of real great interest in Grafton. So we're really excited to reintroduce this project in a different way. So John, take it away.
John's not with us.
Shelley.
John is
We just got John back.
All right.
All
So,
right.
John, you're on the hot seat. So just, John is not actually Michelle McGregor. John is John Grant from GSX. John, why don't you take it away? I just asked for a quick update on the project, where we are, and just, now that we're kind of resetting a little bit, bring the trust up to speed on where you guys are at, where you guys want to be. And then I was going to open it up to the trust for any questions on the, we did send a bunch of material in the packet to everybody. So if they have any questions on it, comments, concerns, or something like that, this would be a good opportunity for us to address some of them. So when we get to each individual meeting after this, we're productive. So, but take it away, John.
All right. Well, I think the first thing that we've been doing is getting through our project feasibility. But that mostly revolves around the civil engineering part of the project. We've done a level 2 environmental. Michelle can give you more information about what that says, but we know that we have some cleanup to do on the site. Probably somewhere around $600,000 worth of soil to remove and some boring pits for draining around the site that we got from our investigation. We have a survey now. We've done a redelineation of the wetlands, and we have done a design that allows us to fill in less than 4,600 square feet of wetland space in a trade-off, so that the entire building can be constructed without, within the confines of the setbacks of the wetlands that are around us. We have designed the building and worked on creating a 4-story wood frame building with quite a bit of amenity space, probably around 7,000 square feet of amenity space. We've also included in the design around 36 indoor parking spaces that we'll rent out additionally for people who don't want to have to dig their cars out of the snow. We have some outdoor landscaped areas to the rear of the building with a swimming pool outdoors and sitting areas and grills and things like that. The building is actually, we have a 3D model. Do you have that 3D model somewhere that you can
Yeah,
pop up on the screen?
Let me find that for you.
While he's digging that up, John, just walk us through some of the density things, some of the things that are going to be very pertinent to the trust's involvement.
Well, we were able to get about 123 units on the site. And we have quite a good mix of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. So that there's, and we also have some studios or efficiency apartments as well. The efficiencies that we have are more or less 1-person efficiencies that would be, perfect. Oh, here we go. That would be well suited to graduate students and things like that. As you can see from the drawing, almost all the units have balconies, and we have pitched roofs. We're using stone at the base and cement board and metal sheeting. We have asphalt tab shingles, and we're doing quite a bit of landscaping up towards the skin of the building. Go down to the middle sheet there, there. So that's really what this is going to look like from the street as you drive by. The building set back, the parking lot is in the front. Parking will be landscaped. The main entrance and access point of the building is where the juncture of the two buildings are, or the two wings are. That's also where the elevators are. And to the left facing the street are all the amenity spaces. There's also a loading dock area to the far left, the end of the building, and also a place for dumpsters and things like that are hidden. So the entrance on the right-hand side of that rendering there, you can see an entrance, and that's the entrance from the parking to the 36-car parking garage that's under the building. Why don't you go up to the one slide above that? Yeah, that shows the entry point. We have a little porte cochere there. We have brick that we've included that matches to a certain extent the brick feeling and the brick and stone feeling that you have when you look at the library down the street. So we're trying to give this more of a modern look to it, but also try and take some materials and link it back to the library and also to some fairly typical finishes and materials that you find around the town of Grafton, including some shiplap and shingle. But mostly there's a lot of glass, a lot of open space, and some nice balconies there to let light into the space. Right now, the building is composed of 1s, 2s. There are no 3-bedroom units, but between those, there's a pretty good mix and efficiencies, as I said before. And 25% of the units equal in proportion of 1s, 2s, and efficiencies based on the number of units in the project are going to be let out for people for affordable housing units. All the parking, except for those 36 cars for the building, is on grade, and we may even use some portion of the stable area there for overflow parking, which is the adjacent piece. One of the thoughts we may have is to purchase the duplex that's right next door, probably as much to just sort of an eyesore to get rid of it and maybe supply us with a little bit more parking, and also to expand our land area, because we are pretty much hampered by the amount of wetlands that we have around the building. So baseline is we have floor plans, we have elevations, we have perspectives of the building, we have pricing that we've gotten from 3 different contractors. We've constructed pro formas, which all make it fairly imminently financeable, even with the increase in interest rates. And, we're looking at a bunch of different paths to go down. One of the paths is to do a project with a Twain component in it. One is to take a look at a typical general partnership, limited partnership structure. And we have also looked at using HUD and the Massachusetts Housing funds to look at the way we finance the project as well. So right at the edge right now of going from a conceptual design to schematic design to finish this thing off and move into design development and working drawings. The next step also is to get some of the stormwater management plans constructed by the civil engineers. They know where the stormwater management's going, but we have to also get with the people that look after the wetlands to get our design to them and make sure they're good with the way we comply with the codes. And that's about where we are right now. We're ready to get into schematic design. Once we get there, we have probably about 6 months of drawings to complete. And then we're thinking we'll be getting into construction somewhere in the fall of next year, 2023.
Okay, John, just a brief update on where the PNS is at.
The purchase and sale agreement?
Yep.
I mean, we have a $25,000 deposit. The PNS agreement has to be acted on by June 14th. And I believe that we'll be able to act on that on or before that date. One of the thoughts we had was possibly closing on the land once we get past certain GMP, once we get our guaranteed maximum price of the project. We should be pretty close to that by June.
Okay, thank you. Just from a brief historical perspective, this kind of puts us at if you take Beacon out of the equation and that partnership that we had talked about over the past several months, you take them out, we're kind of at the point now where we were, 9 months ago as far as progress with the partnership with GSX. As far as a grant agreement was concerned. So this was the next layer of stuff that we wanted to kind of move the ball forward at that point. Of course, the relationship that was developed and the partnership that is no longer there is now gone. So it's the way it works. So I think we talked about that a little bit too. Just for some other perspective on it, for some folks here maybe new to this project that are actually here in the audience or as attendees, this is not 25 Worcester Street, this is 27 Upton Street. This was put in an overlay district at town meeting and then sent out to bid for RFP proposals for density just like this. So this is actually something that goes through the planning board process, not the ZBA process. But it is a fully committed special permit process with the abutters being identified, public hearings, all the same things that you would expect out of the ZBA you're going to get out of the planning board. But this is a district that the town had allotted. Also, this is where the old highway barn is, for some perspective, right across the street from the fire station. So if you go through our bylaws, you'll find that there's kind of 4 iterations of the overlay district for village mixed use is what it started. And then there's the welcome, read through it, you'll see it. But you'll see the use regulations and the density and the affordability components of each independent area that are in there. So the original idea of it was that the trust would partner and we would leverage some of our dollars with theirs, so we can increase the density of from the required 10% to the 25% mark, which of course would make all of these units count towards our SHI because it's an apartment complex, which would go a long way for putting us either in safe harbor or in conjunction with some of the other projects in town, put us over the 10% threshold and give us 40B immunity, if you want to call it that. Also, GSX was the group that had the successful bill over at Pine Street. So if you're over by the train station, look where the old abandoned institute buildings by Tufts, those are all gone now, and that's at the next stage of its development as well. That's also something that GSX has been doing. So very familiar with Grafton, and they've been working with us for a couple of years now. So any questions from the trust directly to GSX?
The elevation we saw last week looks a little different from these. Just curious, were you trying to reduce the height for?
We were trying to reduce the roof height. We were also trying to
Reduce the brick
make
costs?
it trying to make it a little bit more contemporary looking, a little bit cleaner. I think we're there. I think this look is a lot cleaner and nicer. We did get the ability to integrate some of the brick and keep the affordability factor too, which is nice. We like the stone at the base of the brick, and the rest of it's cement board and shingle.
Yeah, I personally liked the brick that you had on the ends that paid a little bit more homage to the library and the more architecture of the area. But I get the cost factor of that, but
This is also going to be something that they're going to go with the planning board as well.
yeah.
Anybody other members of the trust have something for John or Michelle? Dan, you're going to have to tell me because you're sharing your screen so I can't see a hand. All right, we have one comment. Is this something that you wanted to ask?
I did have a question.
Oh, 1 second.
Sorry.
Come on up. That's fine. Go ahead.
John, what happened to the 3 bedrooms? Those were in the kind of like first round pre-Beacon. Was that like a cost thing or like what happened there?
Well, the problem with the 3 bedrooms is I guess number one, it plays havoc with the pro forma because the affordable 3-bedroom units you actually lose money on, whereas the 1-bedroom and the efficiency units you break even on the 1-bedroom and you make money on the efficiency. So we had originally balanced all that out. You actually break even, I'm sorry, the 2-bedroom, you make a little bit of money on the 1-bedroom and you make more money on the efficiency. But whenever we had the 3 bedrooms on, it stilted the equation and it was really hard to make the numbers work. We had less units also. So instead of having 123 units, you only had somewhere around 100 units.
Did you show on here the percentage of those that you're providing? Is it more of a
Actually, it's on the drawings, the tabulation sheet.
Which ones are affordable though?
It's actually the same percentage. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find. Here's 27 Upton. Okay.
I think it was the last one, but not this one.
You had mentioned when you were giving your quick presentation that it was an even ratio of, so you're 25% of your 1s, 25% of your 2s, and 25% of your
Correct.
studios.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm looking at this ratio.
If they go for
mixed
funding with
ratio
HUD or
here.
DACD,
So there are
ratios anyway, so.
Okay.
there are 18 studios. There are 55 1-bedrooms and 50 2-bedroom apartments. So 25% of the efficiencies, which would be about 6 efficiencies, 55 divided by 4, about 11 1-bedrooms, and 50 divided by 4, and about 12 2-bedrooms would be I'm sorry, not 12. 50 divided by, yeah, 50 by 4, yeah, 12 two bedrooms, and probably around 12 or 13 one bedrooms. And like I said, about 5 or 6 studios. It's on my drawing sheet here.
Yeah,
I
we,
just don't
Yep,
have
we
it.
got
got it somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, we're good.
And the difference, I'm guessing, is just, you know, all the other costs of the project went up, financing, materials, et cetera. So the margins got a little slimmer, and that caused the, you know, that's where the 3 bedrooms didn't make sense on this version.
Well, that was one of the things. I guess the other thing was we had more environmental cleanup than we thought we had originally.
Okay.
That we have to deal with, and yeah, prices of construction sort of hit the roof.
Yep.
They're actually coming back the other way right now, which is sort of amazing. The price of wood framing when we first priced this thing was $32 a square foot in place. Right now it's down to 22. That's about a 30% drop in cost on the framing. However, things like the mechanical systems and electrical systems are still, relatively speaking, to pre-COVID, sky high. I mean, unbelievably high. So where we used to build a project like this for $147 a square foot, we're looking at $190 a square foot for this.
John,
Ed has his hand raised.
I'm sorry.
Ed has his hand raised. Just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Can you prop them up on the screen so people can see?
Did that answer your question, by the way?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Ed, please.
Ed, I think if you just talk, you'll.
Yeah,
Pop
no,
up.
so I don't, actually, I have a comment, not so much a question, so we can skip me and go to discussion if no one else has any questions.
Sure. We actually have one in the audience, and then I have a quick follow-up.
Okay.
Yes, just if you could come up there and introduce yourself to us. Where
My name is Helen Blazes, 19 Sartell Road, Grafton. My profession is that of a teacher, and there's been no mention of children in this project. How many children does one anticipate will be living here, and what impact will that have on our school systems? And has the school committee been part of the conversation?
Okay. I'll handle some of that during the discussion. That's not necessarily for John.
It's interesting that you asked that question, because one of the other reasons we didn't do 3 bedrooms was because the larger apartments that you have, the more likely it is to have lots of kids. And so the preponderance of the apartments now are 1 bedroom or efficiencies. The majority of them are, and 2 bedroom apartments typically, are not thought of as family apartments. They're thought of as a bedroom or two people living together. Actually, one of the things we thought about this project. One of the things we
Hey,
thought
go
of
ahead,
this
turn your
project
mic off.
originally was that it's going to be very attractive for seniors, because 1s and 2s are very, very attractive for seniors. And so you might find yourself doing what we call a NORC, which is a naturally occurring retirement community here. So we don't think this is predominantly going to attract any families or kids.
Just for a matter of perspective, from the trust's role in this, whether there's kids that need services that the Grafton community can obviously provide. It's not our initiative to, prevent certain demographics from having access to affordability in Grafton. So whether you have kids or not, you should have equal access the rest of us have to this community, and
God
that's what
forbid.
affordable housing is about. John, just real quick, there's the side building that was part of the RP, the old barn. Is that
Right.
something that we could look at as far as putting a couple 3 bedrooms there? Like even if it's a single,
Some townhouses or something.
something to that effect, yeah. I mean, there's enough land to do it. It certainly shouldn't stay as an old barn that's decaying on the inside anyways.
I think we could,
Can you
we
look
could
at it?
probably look at doing a second project there. I mean, right now, it'd be pretty hard to finance both projects at the same time. It might be a phase 2 to this project. And one of the other things about that was, as I said earlier, we're looking at maybe acquiring that duplex next door and folding that in to the project. But, is there, if I can't speak to the economics of it.
It's gonna be
Okay,
more
but
vulnerable
as
to
I
mobilizing.
recall, because we did run the 3 bedrooms, it did not work very well with
More
3-bedroom
affordable to
units.
Mobilize again. If you mobilize at the same time, it's more affordable.
So we're gonna, if there's participation with the trust there, I think it's certainly something we would look at, because we really want to see some 3 bedrooms as part of this overall project. So if, like Brittany said, if we're mobilizing there to do especially wetlands delineations and some survey work there, can we look at those as far as, if we're gonna have people on site? There's gonna be some cost savings for us to look at it and at least develop the interest, or maybe some future partnerships for the next phase.
Sure.
But it's a nice
I
little
think, I
asset.
think that might be a better thing to do, and maybe look at a different type of housing or family housing over there.
Yep.
That is an acre of land, actually.
Yeah, it's a nice spot.
Yeah.
So, and it's also in the overlay. So it has the same, an acre, Dave can give 10, 12 units.
I mean,
The village mixed use allows by right, I think it's 8 units per acre. You can go up to 16 units per acre with a special permit, which is where this project looks like it's headed.
Yeah, so you could get some density there. On an acre, you could put in the 1.3 or 1.5 parking spaces per as well. It's something we would have interest in. Okay,
All right.
before I end up talking too much, anybody else have anything? Because I want to let GSX go. We can, John and Michelle, you can stay for a general discussion. I know Ed wants to talk a little bit more. We
Sure.
have some formalities to set up as we kind of re-engage anyways, so.
That's great. We're here.
All right. Ed, you want to lead us off on what some of your thoughts were?
Yeah, I'm just a little bit frustrated by this conversation, to be honest with you. This is the now 3rd iteration of this thing that we've gone through. I'm not sensing any more of a commitment to get this done than we had 2 years ago. The design keeps changing, the look of it keeps changing, and now there's fewer 3 bedrooms than there were before, which we said was important to us, which apparently doesn't matter. And, obviously I get really frustrated when I hear people talk about, well, we're sort of deliberately letting out 3 bedrooms because we know that's a cost to the community, as opposed to it increasing costs for families who can't afford a place to live. It drives me crazy to hear people who probably bought their homes at $200,000 criticizing children coming into the community in an affordable project because families now can't afford $750,000 for those same homes 20 years later. Drives me nuts. So to be honest with you, this is our nut. This $1.8 million that we're supposed to fork over to these guys. And I'm not feeling good about it. I don't sense a level of commitment. I don't sense that come June, we're going to be any further along with this than we already are. And this project is starting to become an excuse to not push through other projects that frankly are starting to look more worthy in town. I don't know. I need a little bit more here. I need more.
Can I respond to that?
Absolutely. Please do,
Okay,
because I need
well-
more.
Well, first of all, there were never any 3 bedrooms in any of the proposals we sent you, ever.
That's not what I understood.
No.
So let me ask you, why not?
Well,
Why not?
because economically, the 3 bedrooms are not viable. Even if we didn't have affordable units here, there are not that many people that choose 3-bedroom apartments. And you can go to any one of the housing apartment projects around Shrewsbury or anywhere else and ask how many 3s there are. There are very scarce numbers of 3-bedroom units. Okay.
But that's because it's better for the developer, not because there's not people who don't demand them. There are
Well,
families out there that need
let me-
places to
let me-
live.
let me frame that for you. You're asking us to take a risk and develop the project.
You're
okay?
asking us for $1.8 million.
Well, this project is around 40 million.
Great, and you're going to make a
And so-
profit. And, we're
and-
getting
and
all our
so-
money.
And
Why don't we have
so,
one person
and
talking
so
and the
we're
other
gonna
person
be,
talk
we're gonna
back?
be investing, let me see here. Just so we're clear on this. We're gonna be investing about $10,808,000. Well, you're investing.
You're asking us for 20% of that.
No, I'm asking you for 20% of that, but there's debt on top of that, what we'll be guaranteeing of $25,250,000. The money I'm talking about, the $10 million is cash. It's equity.
Okay.
Okay.
But we're also,
So when
we're a
you
small
say-
towns affordable housing trust. We're giving you all of our money. And so far, what we're getting back is these consistently changing plans that maybe or maybe not will benefit people in this community. I want to make sure if we're making that level of commitment, you guys are making the same level of commitment here.
Well, let me put it this way. Those plans you just saw and the studies you just did have cost us around $320,000 to produce. Okay? Just so you know that. I mean, it's not like we're sitting here playing with our fingers, all right? The fact of the matter is that one of the reasons we decided to go forward with this ourselves was that because based on what we're seeing, you're going to only get around 70 units on this site if they want the 3s and 2s and whatever. As a result, that wasn't getting you where you needed to be in terms of meeting your requirements. And so that was one of the decisions we made, but we've been refining this design. And I don't think that you understand. We've only had control of this property now for around what? 8 months, 9 months. And besides that, we have had this proposal in front of you for a very long time, trying to get through the legal works to get this trust agreement together. And so, we need to know what you're doing to proceed with the project. You asked us initially to do this as an affordable project, and we agreed to work with you. And you're providing us with $1.8 million. It's an incentive for us, but certainly won't make us do things that don't make economic sense because unlike you, we're signing on the dotted line to guarantee all this.
Well, John, I think you've got a couple different things confused there. Number one, we didn't ask you for this. Maybe the town did, but the Affordable Housing Trust has been asked to support this project. This is not our project. This is the town's project. And we're being asked to give you our nest egg to provide enough affordable housing for people in the community to get the bang for our buck. And initially, that seemed to be where it was going. But we also have an interest here in providing not just 1 or 2 bedroom units, but for more than that, because there are people in the community who aren't just 1 or 2 bedroom people. There are families in the community that need help. And this is now, you've had it for 8 months, but we've been here for the past 24 months talking about this spot, right? And that's not your fault, but it's also not ours.
3-bedroom townhouses.
So at this point, I'm sort of reevaluating what our level of commitment should be.
Preliminary reset of the button.
Might be more return on investment right away, though.
Okay, so the reason why we're resetting this is to make sure that we get some of these things aired, to make sure some of these concerns are open. So we're at the initial steps of this, so to speak, again. So do we have anything else? I want to continue this discussion, but I want to continue this inside of the trust and have this conversation amongst us, Ed. Especially seeing that we still have a subcommittee for the grant proposal too. So I can reinitiate that and we can talk amongst the trust, but I don't want to do any negotiating something that's this simple on the agenda. So any more questions, comments, or concerns, send them back to Amber, and then Amber will send them along to GSX as everybody goes through their pro forma and things like that. If you have any other concerns or if you have any other things that you want to see added in, I don't think we should prohibit information going back and forth from trust members as long as it goes through Amber. And then we'll just make sure that we have another meeting with relative alacrity to make sure that we keep this thing actually moving forward quickly. Because as we see, the whole Beacon thing took a solid 6 months out of this thing, and now we got nowhere with it. So, we only have until June to get something figured out. But as a baseline, remember, when the town said that they wanted to put this overlay in this, they only required 10%. Which is something that we probably should have caught, because it was caught in a lot of the other overlay templates, but
Well, no, but Bruce, but we talked about that. Like, we all agreed that, you know, we were going to go with them because it was expedient at the time. And again, 2 years on, we're no further along in this than we were, 24 months ago.
sure, I understand the frustration, Ed. I do. As being a principal member of this, just along with you, I get it. But I gotta start us again somewhere. So it's a viable project. We need to review it. We need to get everything at the point where we were before, and get people looking at something, getting people looking at the plans, going through the pro forma, making sure we are happy with the ratios and things of that nature. We didn't have that before anyway, so we're at that point now. This is still the building blocks. So the decisions haven't been made. Remember, this still has to go to planning board and conservation. So conservation could say that, no, we're not going to let you get that close. We're not going to let you replicate. There are some other features to this that we got to take a look at as well. But I got to get somewhere. So, anyways, I will keep this as a prominent topic. We do have a resident expert with the planning board with us tonight who's going to give a quick presentation a little bit later on the overlay.
Yeah, I should point out that I misspoke myself when we were talking about density. This village mixed use district is different from the other three, both in the affordability requirement, as you noted, we set it at 10%, based in part upon considerations of the size and developability of the land. But the density we allow here is 12 units per acre by right and 20 by special permit. The others are 8 and 16, like I said before. I'd forgotten that this one allows higher density.
So John, we could put even more units on that acre of property by where the barn is. So
You could.
okay,
You could. And, I don't want to seem argumentative, but I've got two projects. I got two issues. I have to make sure that I'm a good steward of your money, and I have to make sure I'm a good steward of the investor's money. And so you get cut back and forth. If you want 3-bedroom units, I have to balance that. I have to go back in, recut this thing, and try and figure out how close I can get to the edge of affordability, to profitability, to make sure the thing gets financed. This project, I know, will get financed.
Have you looked at for home ownership, 3-bedroom townhouses as a separate building to this? So it's a quicker return on your investment.
We could do anything on a smaller scale. This is a fairly large scale, project, and it right now trying to get anything financed is a pretty big lift unless it makes sense financially. So this makes sense financially, and trying to be a good steward of your money and of the money that the investors and the banks put in the thing. You've got to come up with something that makes economic sense and is also good for, has a good affordability factor to it too.
Yeah.
But the other site, if you want to do 3-bedroom units and wanted to do a couple of stacks of walk-ups, 3-bedroom walk-ups, yeah, we could do that, and we could let them use the same amenities, the pool and the clubhouse and things like that as this building does, because it's only a short walk away.
Yep. There's not a lot of affordable options to home ownership, so it's another avenue that'd be good, nice to have in the town.
I understand that. I just want you to understand a couple things. That, first of all, we've only had the property under control for 9 months, 10 months now.
I understand. All you're saying is fair. We get it.
Yeah.
This is
So
part of the
it
dialogue
wasn't
that we're
the
gonna
2
have
years that we've been working on this thing.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys coming. I will keep you posted through Amber on the next meeting, and then, like I said, any updates I'm going to pass and forth. Just send them to Amber. Don't send them to me.
All right.
You don't want
Thanks.
that else.
No. Well, I just as far if we're in official dialogue, we have staff for that reason. We don't have Chris anymore, so we can't kind of go through him. So we're just going to use Amber for all this stuff, just so we have somebody that's monitoring it and can make sure that any changes get updated on the packet and on the website. Thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome, Michelle. Let's see. So now we have, everybody should have a copy of it. It's the RFP that came back from MHP. It's a draft, but it has all of most of the engagements that we actually need in it. What we're gonna have to do is kind of plug our way through it, and make any corrections, make any updates to it. There's some blanks in there that they kind of gave us a template to kind of work with that has all the nuts and bolts that's required. But there's things in there that, you know, who we want to have do the bidding process, who it gets emailed to, the unit density. You guys all see it. It should be in front of you. Dan, is this something that you could put on the screen? Because there's some people here that probably don't have a way to bring it up because we have no Wi-Fi in the room.
Yeah, it should be up now.
It is. All right, so Laura and Claire, I believe her name is, they kind of highlighted the stuff where, you know, they wanted us to make decisions on. How would you guys like me to approach this? Do you want me to kind of just walk through the whole thing? Did anybody do any markups on their own, and they can kind of just we can work it from that perspective? My only major concern was just some of the logistics. You know, this should go to Amber, not me. I don't want to have anything to do with actually taking sealed bids or any of that thing. I don't want to come into my personal email, that's for sure. So we have staff for a reason. Let's let them handle us all. I believe Mr. Blake is going to be handling the RFP for us as far as from the town's perspective. Because if you're not all aware, the town planner left for another opportunity. His last day was November 4th, I believe.
Yep.
So it looks like we're going to get an assistant type or a temporary planner that's going to work a certain amount of hours a week until we get a full-time staffer. I can't tell you when that's going to be. I don't think our planning board rep can tell you when that's going to be.
No, we don't. Yeah, right. We don't know when a new planner will be hired. We do have an interim planner currently working with us for 10 hours a week.
Okay. My guess is we're not going to see a lot of spillover for affordable housing trusts expertise. So Amber's not that she's not intelligent enough to handle it, but she doesn't come with the credentials. So I've been told that William's going to handle our logistics for like the official capacity stuff.
Right. William is the official procurement officer for the town.
Perfect. So, Ed, you've had a chance to kind of cut through this, right?
Yeah, I have. So I just had a few questions, and mostly based on the time frame that we're looking for proposal submissions. And I think I was looking for some input from Brittany on, there's a section on page 9 that talks about conceptual design drawings and what's included. And I noticed there was nothing specific concerning the exterior of the buildings and the aesthetic. And I know that's obviously huge for people.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if that was normal for an RFP or if that was something that we had overlooked. I'm sure it's not, but I just was wondering.
So the elevations with material indications, that could be something that we would see an idea of what that would be. And then the color rendering would also be something we could see. But to your point, they're not going to specify what materials they're using. They might point out a few, but we'll get an
Right.
idea
And
of the massing, but we could be more
And so
specific.
as you mentioned before, like, you know, the difference between the brick and the stucco could be like, you know, something that people would be concerned about. And I know that
Yeah.
that's what people get hung up on, for good or ill.
Yeah, they could do brick rain screen though, so it's just as it's cost effective, more cost effective than masonry. So I mean, we could, yeah.
Sorry,
The,
that was it.
the other thing we're kind of dealing with is, you know, we can put whatever we want in here. We're not the people, you know, we're not the arbiters of the
Yeah.
the variance that's going to be required. So unfortunately, we don't get a lot of kind of feedback from the ZBA on what they want to see on these projects because they don't typically see them. You're looking at Sotir's place over on Prentice, and you can see kind of how that worked through its process. You know, there was a considerable amount of adds to it as it went through its chain. There was a considerable amount of, you know, redevelopment, so to speak. Some for good, some I think poorly done, but you know, they got a usable project that wasn't quite what we had first seen when we were on the select board.
For bad or
Some, I don't know. I don't want to go too far. They're gonna be in the audience. I'm gonna get a nasty email again, but whatever.
I guess my only other question is on page 4, going into 5, development objections, section 4, second full paragraph. The Grafton Affordable Housing Trust would like to see 2. It says elevatored buildings. I guess that's a word. Elevatored buildings.
Yeah,
no more than
elevated.
3 stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the architecture should be harmonious with existing norms for Grafton, and I'm wondering if that should be more specific to the neighborhood, because Grafton's
yes.
architectural designs are all over the place. You know, we've got some places that are just mill houses in the north and south Grafton, but center Grafton tends to be more Victorian.
Hey Dan,
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's hopefully we can put enough things in here where we don't have any issues going through ZBA and all that, so that
Yeah,
it's a
I mean,
smooth
it's just,
process,
you know,
right?
put them on notice of this is what you're going to be looking at,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Dan, do you have a copy of this printed off in front of you? You can do some of these, you know, redlining a little bit. Or put some
I
comments in.
don't have it in front of me. I mean, other than this one on the screen.
All right. Tell you what.
PDF editor. Come on over here.
Right. All right. I guess I'll take Dan's job as the clerk, even though I don't want to. All right.
So we're gonna go through all the highlighted items and make decisions, and then we're gonna do that.
Yeah,
after.
you really need to. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the time. This is our workspace to get it all done. So we want it to be at a usable point where we have a draft that we can vote on and send it away. We do have some people participating with us that you know I want to solicit for some comments from. We have a statement I think that wanted to be read as well, ma'am. You had something to read. Okay, so I tell you what, seeing that I'm taking notes, just real quick, Ed, walk me through what you just said so I can add or.
Sure. So, I guess going from what I just mentioned, I mentioned development objectives, section 4. What parts of town should we be encouraging the developer to look at for the architecture to be harmonious? I would say the neighborhood and not all of
Yeah, you
Grafton.
could just say the surrounding context of the
Yeah.
surrounding neighborhood, center of Grafton.
Okay, so you're on page 5, building design and aesthetics.
Yes.
Okay,
And then I think we covered it on page 9 under conceptual design drawings. If we don't need to have exterior building design spelled out, and it's already sort of there in the penumbra of whatever else is
Yep.
mentioned, that's fine. The only other 2 things that I was a little bit concerned about was, number 1, we were setting on the site tour and briefing. We had a 2022 date. That's, 7 weeks from now. I don't know if that's,
Yeah.
that seems like soon to me.
okay.
The last thing was, and this is a major thing, section 4 talks about the trust is seeking developer to build no more than, on the thing that I'm looking at, 48 or 60 affordable senior rental units. And it's, I thought that what we were looking at was something 48 and sub. And that seems like a big difference to me. Like
That was
we need to know about
224
that.
units, was it?
Yeah, it's
So she just wants us to confirm that.
Yeah, so there's 2 parts: the invitation to bid, development of number of affordable senior rental housing, which is on page 3 at the top. I think we can put in. You have to have a range. Which we can get around that 48 anyways.
Yep.
But where does it reference the 2 buildings?
I don't know if we put that in here. It was just in the sketch that you had done, or who I think somebody had a quick sketch on the site done.
Yeah.
There's like 2 buildings that were.
I thought it was part of the amendments in the back, attachments rather.
Conceptual site designs.
Yeah.
I think it was in the last package from last meeting, not this one.
It was. All right. For the dates for the range, there's going to be, of course, the procurement law is going to tell us the minimum range where we can go out to bid. As long as everybody's happy with the range that we wanted being out there. We do have a couple of companies that are interested in it that want to see the proposals as soon as they're drafted. So those will go out right away. And that's kind of based on what they've seen, what we talked about with those two concepts. But as far as like throwing that in, so we got to go from this stage to voting on a final draft version, which is going to have to happen in another meeting. So we'll take all this stuff and we'll send it back to MHP. Say these are all the things we need to put in there. We'll get the final draft and then we'll sign off on that, and then we can plug in the dates for when William needs to conduct the actual procurement.
Oh yeah, attachments does say conceptual site design, so we'll just attach it.
Okay.
She just doesn't have it attached.
One big measure is what we want to do with the property, whether this is going to be a sale, a ground lease, whether we're donating the land, those type of things. We didn't really talk about. This can go a couple different ways. Ground leases are, they don't finance ground lease projects in the same way as if the developer is going to take ownership. So if we want to go that way, or if, our participation in this is the actual cost of the land, it would make sense for us to go get an appraisal on it. So we know exactly what we're participating in as far as a monetary value is concerned. Unless everybody wants to just do a ground lease. One of your ground lease applications, which everybody should be well aware of, is over by Tufts. So there's properties in the Science Project overlay district that have been dormant for a long, long time. Part of the troubles, at least as it was explained to me when I was on the board, was that, they're ground leases. You're not going to get a big pharma company that's going to come in and ground lease for 50 years when they need to go out and finance with the property not being in their names. And you can't take a position on it as well. So it becomes difficult. So, but does anybody else have any, does anybody else want to keep our names on the actual property?
What's the advantage?
I can't think of one in this market, but I mean, I guess it gives you a little bit more control over the property, but this is all going to be deed
What is it, like
restricted
99
work.
years? Or?
I don't think you can do a 99, but you can do a 50.
Okay.
So,
I mean, my opinion on it would be either leave it open if we can, or whatever is going to make the financing more attractive, because then you're going to get more affordability. If they're paying higher interest rates, then just as we saw with GSX, that's going to have consequences elsewhere.
Yeah.
all right, so I'm going to mark this as, I'll check with them, make sure the language is proper, but if that's the direction we're going to go, we'll sale the property. They might give me some feedback, because this is not something that I thought was in our original look at it. So there might be some sort of statutory requirement. I don't think there is. Kathleen would have picked up on it. So does anybody have a problem with site tours and things of that nature?
I mean, just that the 2022 date was soon. I don't know if we want to extend that to a certain
Yeah.
date in January, February.
This is a really bad time for architects, I will tell you that.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Everyone's trying to get things done,
Okay.
so I don't know.
I mean, we'll have people available to do it. I mean, I work in a home office.
Yeah, I can do it too.
Somebody, you're right down the street, so I think as long as the trust members know that it's gonna be one of us that has to participate in that piece and has enough knowledge on the subject to answer any questions. So, you might get a call saying that you need to go up there and meet somebody.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm home.
If they're interested, that's a good thing. Okay, another big component of it, of course, we have deed restrictions on there that are gonna set, you know, they do have a 99 ground lease on this. I didn't even see
Yeah.
that. Which we can't do. It's 55 plus according to the restriction that's placed on the deed via the town meeting warrant article. So we're gonna have to clarify that just a little bit more. And of course, we should probably add a copy of the warrant article to the RFP.
I don't know that it's advantageous to us to make it older than 55. I don't think.
I think it starts to go downhill the more restrictive you get it.
I would wonder if we even can, if it's 55 plus on the deed restriction or on the warrant article, could we do a higher? Like, I know we couldn't go lower, but could we even go higher, or would it just have to be exactly 55 plus?
55 plus means 55 and above, so I mean, you could do 60 or 61 or whatever, but why would we?
Well, I'm thinking somebody might argue that they voted for 55 plus, and if 56-year-olds aren't allowed, that's not what they voted for. So
That's not what 55 plus means.
That doesn't mean we can't have the argument for 8 years.
Let's just leave it at 50.
All right.
Isn't the idea for people to downsize and leave up their homes for families?
Well, the other thing that we were looking for is frail housing, which is going to
Yeah.
define that population sector anyways. So I think
True.
55 plus is going to engage developers, and they're going to take a look at this anyways. So, okay, so affordability, which is on page 5. This is a big chunk of it because while most of this housing style is almost completely subsidized, you could still get another bidder in there that is looking to do, just standard 55 plus housing, who thinks they can do 48 units and make money off it in this market. So what type of restrictions do we want to see? We talked a little bit, Ed, about 3 bedrooms and stuff like that. Do we want to,
Isn't that the first thing on here that she's highlighted? The number of affordable senior rental housing units.
well, but amongst the affordability, there you can scale the affordability of each independent unit. So we could
As
say,
far as like the AMI.
yeah, she has a range. She's
Yeah, she's got
30%
the-
to 80%.
In that chart she has an attachment, she's got,
It's just that you know where it's going to come back. It's the developer is going to want to see something closer to 80 than 30.
Yeah.
For the same reason that, John didn't want to see very many 3-bedroom units, is because it's just not all that profitable for them. And the more that we trend toward 30%, this is really what I want people to understand. The more you trend toward the lower income for the people who really need it, the more of a subsidy you really need. Which kind of gets into my whole argument about GSX, which is we're giving up $1.8 million, and what are we getting out of this? Because this is all our money. And, we don't have more money to really subsidize this more than we would like to. So this is a real conversation about like direction here. If we're doing this and we want to see a lot more 30% AMI, then frankly, for me, I don't know how attractive GSX is to me at this point. They can go do it on their own if their pro forma is what they're worried about. I don't know. I'm annoyed by that conversation, and that maybe it's a conversation for another time.
I
but-
understand. Why don't we keep that conversation where that one's at, though? Get
Yeah.
through this thing.
So 30 to 80 seems fair. I'm predicting, obviously, we're going to get a lot more 80, and the reaction from the community is going to be predictable. Like, what? This is affordable, $1,200 a month for a
That's the
senior.
thing.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
She's
Yeah.
got the chart down there where it says highly advantaged. That says if it's more 30%. It's like attachment A on page 15.
And again, percentage of AMI is going to be something that the ZBA is going to look at when they get another bite at this.
So basically she's telling them like, hey, if you're more closer to 30, then you're probably gonna be more likely to get the job.
Right.
So
From us.
I mean,
Anyways,
Can we make mention in the RFP that we have potential cash reserves for subsidization? No.
Well, I think to the point that Ed was making earlier, our money is, as long as we kind of have this understanding that GSX is trying to do something to accommodate the deal that we sort of are working on,
Dan, what,
our money's kind of tied up on that. We can't
No.
put our money on this and that at the same time. So
just remember, there are other courses of action. We do, if we're giving the property, that's actual substantive value. That is a
Right.
part of our portfolio. We also have the option of going to the water district, the sewer district, to alleviate some fairly significant numbers when you're looking at density this high.
is there any CPC money we can get?
Yeah, they got tons of money. Tons of money. You were at that meeting. So,
well, a lot of it just went to the 95
it's
North
not it.
Street Park, but
I get
but
it.
they'll get more.
We-
They'll get more money.
We can make the
Comes in every
ask
year.
if we have an RFP proposal that's coming in and we want to
Yeah.
modify it after we actually have a developer that's willing to participate in a project of this scale. We can start looking at those type of things to further subsidize units. That can happen after we get actual bids. So we can go to them and say, hey, can you make a couple of these 3 bedrooms as opposed to 2? We'll give you X amount of dollars to do it.
They also have bond capacity.
CPC.
Yeah.
I would say nothing's off the table once we get, this is the first time we've actually gotten to this step. So let's see if we can get some people actually interested in this. And then we know we can, instead of this hypothetical thing where we're pretending like we're gonna get this thing developed, this is the point where we're gonna say, okay, this is the number, this is what we think we're gonna do. Let's see if actually somebody's gonna build it, cause I'm not gonna go out there with a hammer and nails and start building stuff if this falls through, so. So the range, the 30 to 80, everybody's okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The building design and aesthetics, I don't think we need the towards the rear of the property. I think it's actually, you're probably better off to get more support from the neighborhood that's closer towards the street, so you get more. I mean, they could access it too if it's gonna be common. I don't know.
You mean push the parking in front and put
In
the
the
buildings
back.
back?
But the parking in the, I mean, I saw the couple things that we had.
Dan, would you mind pulling up the set of plans, the concepts that we had from last week? They should be part of this.
Are they in this packet, or should I?
They might be in a previous packet.
It was in the last week, I think.
All right, yeah. Let me
Take your time, it's
find
fine.
that.
Anything else standing out?
Yeah, I mean, parking into the back is preferred.
As you get past page 8, it's a lot of the kind of the nuts and bolts that are required.
Mm-hmm. Did you want me to look at this?
The other thing I just need to, and I was remiss in not doing it for tonight, but to match up some of the development, the plans requirements, to match them up to what is going to be required for submittal to the ZBA. Just to make sure that we're not asking them to do stuff for us that they're going to have to change, because those things cost money. I will go through that and match it up, as long as everybody's okay with me mirroring it with our local bylaws. I would assume MHP did that already, but I didn't match it up myself. So, of course, Dave's here. Did you have a chance to take a look at this? No, all right, fine.
How much time are we giving ourselves to review and select? Doesn't it say? Does it?
Well, it depends. Do we want to have these things out and back by the end of the year? So that's-
Ideally,
that one in red is the one that we were looking at. with parking in the rear
Yeah.
and the side. So that takes into account some of the grading issues and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be this way. I think when blending with the neighborhood as you're coming up, most of those houses are right on the street. So parking in the rear would give you a much easier job of buffing and screening the neighborhood, which would be behind it, which I guess is Sartell. And then the Covenant's property, which would be out the back window of that building on the far left. I think there's more continuity with the neighborhood if we would just have both right on the street.
I think it's a little bit safer too for them. My grandma has a hard time getting in and out of their car.
So, I do like the two buildings. They fit. You know, there's an acre apiece for each of them they utilize.
You got the short side on the street on that one. It's nice.
I think we should require 1.5 parking spaces. Because I don't think it has a shot anywhere else of going anywhere under anyways. You know, well, we got time before it gets too late. Ma'am, you had a statement that you wanted to read to us. Do you want to do that now?
Sure.
Well, we got everybody's attention before it gets too late.
Before everybody falls asleep.
Well, yeah. I don't want to keep you here too long if we get into the weeds and this stuff.
Helen Blazes, 19 Sartell Road in Grafton. Some of you may know that my husband, Mark Blazes, died during this past year, and he was a writer for the Worcester Telegram. He did the outdoors. And so he was working on an article and was going to be about 25 Worcester Street, and I just happened to find it on the computer. I probably should have read it a long time ago, but anyway. So I just thought I would read what he had written. He said, "My wife Helen and I are concerned with the change of character that this project will make in our historically important and beautiful Grafton Center. There needs to be architectural consideration for not diminishing the character of our common periphery, which is a valuable treasure for the whole town, increasing our aesthetics, desirability, and property values. Doing this development out of character would be a permanent, ugly scar for our entire town. The suggestion to add large numbers of people in many units transparently would benefit a few, but not our community, which will experience more congestion, more traffic, and the diminishment of the qualities that have made Grafton so desirable. There definitely should be no more than, let's say, 4 two-family residences limited to the 55 and over seniors. Planners are at a crossroads. They can keep Grafton beautiful or cram it with more and more buildings, more and more people, and render it something other than what attracted all of us here in the first place: to live here, to raise our families, and to love our town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I kind of opened up to folks that I've seen participate in a lot of these meetings. There's something that anybody wants to add, I can give the mic over a little bit. No? Okay. So in that statement, there was some mention about aesthetics and things of that nature. So I think we have that balanced in here. We're going to get to see what those aesthetics are going to be, what they're going to look like.
Yep.
And again,
I will just mention there are some beautiful properties in town that do house quite a few people that you would probably not know actually house quite a few people. The Purple House on the corner there next to the spa that just got put in, that's probably 10 or 12 units in there, and you would never know. So that's the part. If you get a good architect on this, it shouldn't clash. That's the point of hiring a good developer and a good architect. So that we're trying to do that. We're trying to put that in this RFP. So
what I consider, I take a little umbrage with the density argument and cramming things in places. So just for some real world perspective. So if you're going up, what is it, Wheeler Road, there was a project there that, while it was on the board, there was some concern about some of the back parcels, and some continuity with the land trust and preserving property and some things of that nature. At the time, I had proposed that we take another look at it, and instead of engaging in single family homes, which there ended up being some 20 some odd ones, that went back on just yet another cul-de-sac neighborhood, which gobbles up land that could be properly conserved, and asked if they would just put 3 of these style units on the frontage that are right there on Wheeler Road, which of course at that time had access to water, sewer, and gas as well. Not only was I told that that was not the way to go, but I also made a fair amount of enemies just by stating that they should go and do and propose that type of density. Yet, if that density had been accomplished, it would have preserved the entire back parcel of land. So if you look at another project that's going now, that's on Pleasant Street. It's a nice field. Everybody enjoys looking at that field. But as far as preserving land and land that's walkable and usable, if you were to put that density right next to the road, which is what they're doing, that entire back chunk gets deeded over to the town. I spent years on the planning board going through yet one proposal after another, which was typically flexible design, which are generally cheaper, to preserve common space around these developments. But as David can probably attest to, over the last 20 years, we've principally done, exclusively almost, single family homes. And you made a comment earlier, which is
Cookie
something,
cutter, single family homes.
Right.
Contractor specials.
and a lot of that density was done, not necessarily through the 40B process, but certainly through the threat of the 40B process. There wasn't a development that we saw, or I saw, going through the planning board during those periods that wasn't, well, if we don't give them what they want here, they're just gonna go get 40B, and they're gonna do it on their own. Because as everybody knows in communities such as ours, the 40B, while it has a novel approach to trying to handle the affordability of homes in the state, in a town like Grafton, a developer can really abuse those situations. So if you have 10% of your housing that's affordable, it doesn't really make an impact on affordability of a community. All it does is allow them to, cram in 28 units into what was more appropriate to have 6, and if they followed our actual rules, that's what they would have gotten. But I can't correct those problems. All that I can say now is there is still a sizable amount of undeveloped property, and if we're conscious about how we deploy our housing in town and take opportunities like this, it will give you more opportunities to preserve in other places. So I don't think people should be scared of density, especially when it's deployed with some thought of planning, some thought of the next 20 years, some thought of the next farm that's going to just say, okay, well, you're not at your 10% threshold. We can go in and put 127, single family houses, which should be a concern to something that was mentioned a little bit earlier tonight, is putting children in the school system. So when Prentice Place went, we asked them to go back and take a look at, if this was apartments or if this was single family homes, and to demonstrate that typically, even in affordable aspects of rental places, your apartment buildings and your condo put less school-aged children into the system. Not that that should be a problem and something that we should be concerning ourselves with, but it's pretty well documented. As opposed to a typical single-family home in a transient community like ours, typically we would put more children in the school system. And if you look at just the financial aspect of that, you only need to have 2 kids in a home for a home that's of your $450,000, which is the average home price in town. That says, well, you're not winning in that, and you're just not. So that home is never going to pay its own way as soon as they hit that 2 kids mark, which is the other end of this. I know I'm rehashing this all out. Most people have already heard me say this, but we keep coming back to these and it becomes kind of circular that, you know, we hear the same thing. We don't want the density, we don't want the congestion, we don't want the traffic. Well, that's coming anyways. And you can adapt these projects, and I think we're doing a good job of that to try to alleviate some of those concerns. Especially in some of our overlays. So, you know, take the 27 Upton Street, 122 units. We're going to partner with them, or hopefully partner with them, and we're going to get all counted against our SHI. That's a year's worth of safe harbor from 40B. And it probably puts us over the cap too. So, but that doesn't mean you stop developing and say we're closed off to everybody, because the town is still growing. There's still plenty of developable land out there. And you're still going to add to their inventory. So, do you want to say something? Yeah, come on.
My name is Keith Coveney, and I'm at 17 Worcester Street. And, you know, Bruce, I listened to your discussion, and I'm not sure that I understand where you're going with your conversation that you just had, because the town is using what the developers have done in the past. And the property that we're talking about is making the town take the position of 40B and increasing the density in a town where you have restrictions that are zoned for, in your case, Ellen, 4, 6 to 8 units. So over time, if you look at the land that's available here in Grafton, and, you know, then you point to, you know, Upton Street, and you're putting 122 units in there. For me, it doesn't make any sense at all. And you're doing your job, and we appreciate it. You know, affordable housing is important. But when I look at that building, that's going to be 12 feet, 15 feet from my property line, and on the other end, you have a third of the property that's going to be vacant. Why? So you're taking a percentage of the property and you're putting multi-units in there, and the town gave affordable housing for senior affordable housing that would fall within the zones that affect the parts of the town. It doesn't make any sense to me. You're a do-gooder. I appreciate that, but your discussion doesn't make any sense at all. Your position with the town is to enhance the community and obey the rules. And now you're taking the property and you're making it 40B. Just like 122 Upton Street. It doesn't make any sense. You can call it anything you want. But again, I may be missing something. What am I missing?
Bruce, can I address that?
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, the thing that you're missing is that 25 Worcester Street was conveyed to the Affordable Housing Trust to build affordable housing. And the Affordable Housing Trust is saying that pursuant to our mission to create more affordable housing for a population that is in need, we are going outside the current rules that you're citing, the zoning requirements, to get as much bang for our dollar as we possibly can. And these are for units for people who really need it. So where I start to get my hackles up a little bit is when people start to talk about the aesthetics of the surrounding neighborhood as though nobody in this trust cares, or everybody in this trust just wants to see something garish built at, you know, an important part of town that we all acknowledge is really pretty and really nice and is frankly our brand. We're all trying to do our best here to make sure that what is built there both serves the community and looks appealing. And when I say serves the community, I mean two different things. Helen had said a moment ago that this wouldn't serve the community. I couldn't disagree more. Because when you talk about the community, you're talking about people that you don't know who need this service. People that you don't know who are in situations that maybe you aren't aware of, who need this financial break to make their lives work. There are basically 3 other places in the United States that are more expensive to live in Massachusetts. None of the places in the United States are more expensive to live in Massachusetts than if you're over the age of 70. Massachusetts is the most expensive state in the entire nation to grow old in. And we're trying to do our best to create as many units as we can for those people. And as you heard me argue with the developer earlier, the more units that they get, the more likely they are to sign on to do something with us. So we're trying to toe the line between doing something y'all will accept and doing something a developer will actually sign on for. So that's where this benefits everybody. When somebody who's older and aging in place has a home that they can't afford anymore and can't keep up anymore, that home becomes on the market when they can move into someplace affordable that isn't going to break the bank, that will allow them to pay for medicine, that will allow them to pay for food, that will allow them to maintain their savings for as long as possible as they age. That's what we're doing here. If the aesthetics of it bother people, well, I'm sorry. And I guess that's sort of where I turn to my fellow trust members and I start to wonder, what is the mission of our outreach here? Because it seems like people don't understand what we're trying to do. But at the same time, we have this land. And I just, I know, Bruce, as you said before, you're not going to be the one with the shovel and the hammer, and neither am I. But I want to start seeing a shovel on the ground here. And that's me just being kind of impatient with this, because I know from studying this over the course of the past 15 years of my life, the longer we delay and the longer projects are delayed, the less likely they are to happen.
I think we're at a point now where I can make the edits to this RFP, send them back, get it fleshed out with MHP.
The sustainability features on the attachment A, are there some that we want
You want to go through those?
I mean, there was a couple highlighted,
Yeah, the roof ready for solar and things of that nature.
yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of required now in
It is.
Massachusetts, so
Yeah.
I don't think you can.
Well, the
I
roof
think-
ready for solar is not a requirement. That's why it's highlighted, but
In Mass?
I don't think it is. Multi-family dwelling. I don't think there's a statutory requirement. I'll check. It's fine.
Yeah. I think that LEED's not needed. It's just a money grab. Passive house would be great, but I don't know that it's feasible. But it's been done in the city, so maybe.
Do you want me to exclude that then?
No, you can leave it. I mean, it's just if they do it, it's more advantageous. But I think you can get rid of LEED.
Does anybody else even know what LEED is?
Yeah.
I do not.
I can pretend, but no, I'm not going to go there.
This is what I do for a living.
What is LEED?
It's a way. So USGBC is like a green building council, and it's just a way of certifying your building to say that you've done all these different checklists of systems, indoor air quality, materials, or
It's pretty
helping the
popular.
environment.
It's more popular in Europe, though, isn't it?
Passive house more popular in Europe. LEED maybe before, but now it's just they want your money. It's you're better off vernacular architecture.
When you get that star on your appliance when you buy it from Best Buy?
Energy Star, yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
that's one of those. You get
But-
one credit for that.
The library's LEED certified.
Yeah,
How's that project?
but
Yeah, I mean, it's fine to leave it in there because like the
Yeah, we don't have- they
unacceptable,
don't have to do it.
advantageous. Well, yeah, we can leave it in because we're not saying they have to meet it.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
hey, you get preference if you do
Okay.
Yeah,
this.
they get an extra point for saying yeah.
Exactly.
yeah,
We're going for lead.
Okay, so the core of what we're trying to establish here is
Seems fine.
the overall mount density. And I can have MHP handle the amount of time. Imagine people want to try to get this bid out before the end of the year. I don't know if that's possible right now. I think we're going to push into January. And if we push into January, we want to exclude 2 weeks during the holiday season, because you're not going to get anything back. So if I can get this back to MHP, get it back to us, call a meeting to vote on it, which I'm sure would be okay with. We can just do it hybrid, and go through the final draft to vote on. Then we can probably get it posted before Christmas. But
Yeah.
and like Brittany said, it's a tricky time. So
Effectively, it's almost the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
I know.
much.
yeah, it's November 11th tomorrow.
If a developer goes to an architect and says, unless they have a good relationship, if they go to the architect and say, "Hey, can you get me this before Christmas?" They're gonna be like, "No, sorry."
Okay. So I don't want to send it out for 3 weeks and not get a bid because somebody doesn't want to, participate because they get architects going on vacation or whatever. So
Do you work 60 hours a week?
occasionally, not often.
We don't get paid enough. Let me just say.
All right. Do you want me to send a memo to your boss?
Yeah, please.
I would definitely be more in favor of giving it more time to try to cast a wider net.
Okay.
I think it's important to get the right developer and the right
Yeah.
parties interested.
And developers are kind of closing out their books for the year too, so I don't know.
Yep.
Well, there is a diligence period after these get returned. It says that we send out all these. We got participants. We can't have a review session and say this does not. We can say no to everybody. We're not committing to anything at this point.
Okay.
We're trying to put the parameters together, and then we can have another deeper discussion on what we get. It also might give us some insight into what we're missing as far as finding a developer who's willing to do something like this for us. So I'm comfortable with the 48 number. I know there's people here that aren't, but as far as our piece of it, I think that's a number that we're going to get some participation.
I mean, I would just say that there's houses on South Street, other streets in the area that are 6,000 square feet. You could fit 10 units in that building
Well,
at 600 square foot a unit. So just putting that out there.
we're going to have that argument, I'm sure, a
Saying.
couple times.
I live on Worcester Street, just so you all know.
It's not an argument, Bruce. It's a discussion.
Fair enough. The discussion is an argument without yelling.
Okay.
Brilliant. So
A
I'm
discussion is an argument without Ed Frisbee. How's that?
Fair enough. I'm gonna send any of the minor corrections we have with some of the instrumental pieces to Laura tomorrow. No, I'm sorry, Monday. Tomorrow is a holiday. And then as soon as I get a response, they should be able to turn around, or they told me they'll turn around quickly. So plan on a meeting. Shoot.
Thanksgiving?
2 weeks
Yeah.
from tonight would be perfect for you.
I'll be asleep.
Man, this year just gone. As soon as I get it back, and I have 48 hours, we'll post something to have a meeting just about this. Because I'd like to get it wrapped up and at least have the potential to get it out there before Christmas.
Just a virtual.
Yeah, just so it's, if we send it out there for like 6 weeks, something long period, that's gonna get us into January anyways, and it will give plenty of time to move it around. We'll probably get bids back right away, because we're gonna send this to a couple outfits that are certainly been paying attention and are interested, so.
Presumably MHP has a pretty good network that they will just prime with this anyways, I would imagine.
I mean, that's part of the goal of our partnership is to branch out to their networks. So, okay, great. Housing production plan update. I think I didn't get anything back from William before our meeting, but that should be wrapped up. So I'm guessing Karen was the only one that bid. But I'll attach that to us. And I'll connect with him on Monday as well. And then I didn't get this on the agenda, but Dave Robbins, who's a member of the planning board, has been putting a lot of time looking into the.
MBTA zoning.
Thank you very much. And I told him I'd give him a spot on tonight. I want to give him some time to just talk about it briefly with us tonight, and I'll bring you back again for an official item. But there's some things here that might weigh in on some of the discussions we have, especially when we look at RFPs, density, dealing with GSX and stuff like that. So I think it's important for him to get the information across. And then we'll host something specifically for the public if there's any collaboration you want to take with the trust and the planning board at a future date.
Yeah, I know
Go ahead
that
and
the
take it away.
planning board's going to be digging into this a little bit more. But Dan, if you could go to the planning department's webpage, and under current studies and projects, there's a subtitle there, or a link for the MBTA zoning, and there's a list of documents there. I think it's the bottom one has the word presentation in the title, in the link. If you can put that on the screen. Yeah, what I thought you guys might be just interested briefly in understanding what the current view of the MBTA zoning is with respect to affordability requirements.
So Dave, could you just give me the directions there again real quick? So the planning department website, and then where?
Current studies, or studies and projects current, or I forget exactly the word.
Yep, got it. Okay.
And then click on that, and then there's I think the first link on that page is MBTA zoning.
Okay, and there's 4 PDFs in here.
The bottom one.
Got it.
So I don't know how much you guys have heard about I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail tonight. I want to keep this brief. Of course, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, but this is sort of where we're at right now. The overall idea was that the legislature last year passed this law, Section 3A of Chapter 40.
Dan, do you have something for the screen for us?
Dan's working on it.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah. So basically we are required to create a certain amount of zoning for multifamily development by right. And it's because we have a commuter rail station in town. So in principle, the idea was to create zoning for multifamily development by right in the neighborhood of the transit. So they've been working on it. They started out almost a year ago with their preliminary guidelines. They issued their final guidelines in August, as you can see on the screen. One of the interesting things was, although we've got, there's a half-mile radius around the T station that you're supposed to, within that half mile, they want you to create a whole lot of multifamily zoning. Somewhat surprisingly, we are classified as an adjacent community, which relaxes the requirements a good deal. It's because we have less than 100 acres of what they call developable station area within a half mile of the station. We only have 82 acres of what they deem to be developable. So as a result of that, we don't have to put any of that zone in proximity to the station if we don't find the convenient. But basically the requirements that we have to meet are, we have to create zoning that can accommodate at least 776 units at a density of at least 15 units per acre. But because we're an adjacent community, none of that acreage has to be within the station area. We do have to come up with 50 acres of multifamily zone, but it can be anywhere in town. So we've got a lot of flexibility there. They do want at least 25 acres together in one place, contiguous, but beyond that, we've got a fair amount of flexibility. And we have until the end of 2024 to create this zone, so we're not under any time pressure right now. But if you scroll down to the next, the next page there, that shows you the circle there on that page is the half-mile radius. The green area is the developable station area. See, the pink area is excluded. It's all of the Job Corps, Tufts, anything owned by the state or the town. So what ends up, and in the green area you'll see some blue blotches. Those are the Title V buffers, which are also excluded. So that's where we end up with just 82 out of all that land. Only 82 acres is considered developable, and all of that is already developed. That's all Centec Park. It's already developed. But that's okay as far as they're concerned. They're talking about creating zoning, not talking about actually building anything. Yeah. Now the kicker with us is, and if you scroll down one more page there, Dan, that a couple of those parcels are changing ownership or have actually changed ownership. So 8 Pine Street turns green. One parcel in Centec Park turns pink because that was given to the town because it was undevelopable. And there's another parcel there that I've labeled green there because it's going to be developed eventually. In fact, it's being sold or at least in the process of being bid out or whatever. I don't know exactly the current state. But anyway, so even with these changes, we still have less than 100 acres of developable stationary, and that's the point of this diagram. Now, scroll up. The last slide is where we can talk about a little bit more about the details. As I said, multifamily will be allowed as of right. No special permits, no variances. Again, we have to have at least 50 acres somewhere. 15 units per acre. Affordability, the affordability requirements have been changing. At first, we wouldn't have been allowed to have any affordability requirements at all. The final guidelines said, well, okay, you can require up to 10% of that multifamily zone. In that multifamily zone, you can require up to 10% of the units to be affordable. Or if you're creating a 40R in that area, you can require 20% affordable. And then just 3 weeks or so ago, they decided, okay, if you have an existing 40R with 25% affordable, you can count that. So happens we have 2 existing 40Rs. One is 8 Pine Street, and the other one on the old Fisherville Mill site. We have a 25% affordability requirement. So we could count those 2 40Rs as part of our zone. But that still leaves us having fun, because that's together those 2 parcels are only about 20 acres.
Did they say that even though we've already permitted 140R?
Yeah, right. So the zoning in that 40, we could say that 40R is part of our multifamily zone district for this, and it counts, it qualifies. We've got something on it that's built at a much higher density than 15 per acre. It's about 35 per acre, but that would count as part of our zone, as could the Fisherville, part of the Fisherville multifamily zone. I mean, there's some other requirements too that we can't have any age restricted, we can't have any requirements for age restricted housing. We have to, our zone has to allow families. There's a few other requirements, but in terms of affordability, what probably of interest to you is that we have an opportunity to include an affordability requirement in our zone beyond, like I say, those 2 parcels we have, those 2 zones we have that already qualify for this. We still need to find more, but we can include an affordability requirement there as well.
Who's the arbiter of this? Is it DHCD that's handling it?
Yes, DHCD has put out these guidelines and is managing this.
So when we officially go to town meeting, which I assume is how it's going to work, and we decide on which properties get this overlay district, do they get a whack at it and say, well, this is not what we were looking for, or this is what we were looking for?
Yes. They suggest that we, as we develop our plans for whatever we're going to do for this district, and we haven't really begun thinking about where we will put this district and how many different parts, how many different places. It can be all one, or it can be scattered. We just have to have one piece that's at least 25 acres in and of itself. I don't think that's going to be a problem. But there's a whole compliance evaluation that they do. You map out your zone. You tell them what the rules are for setbacks, height limits, that kind of thing, and they will basically, that all goes into a spreadsheet, and out pops, yes, this qualifies, this complies, or no, it doesn't. So we have to come up with something by the end of 2024 that complies.
So it has to be at least 50 acres, several parts, but all right.
There's got to be a big chunk
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
contiguous.
I can think of a couple of chunks of land that,
So, but the
Densely
density's
fit
not
in
that
here.
far off of our mixed use, or village mixed use
Right.
overlays anyway, so.
yeah, right, we could, among other things, we could tweak some of the parameters of village mixed use. Basically, we have to allow multifamily development at least, sort of looking across the whole zone. Individual parts can be more or less, but it has to work out to 15 units per acre of multifamily housing by right. And it's going to be the 27 Upton Street Village mixed use zone comes pretty close to this because it allows 12 units per acre by right. We could, we could tweak that up. There's various things that we can play with and tweak with our existing zoning. We may look at modifying some of our RMF zoning. We can create an entirely new zone.
But you still
none of
gotta go
us-
to town meeting and get it signed off.
Yeah, none of us who have been involved with this have gotten to the point of, really trying to nail down some details. Where should we look in town for this zoning? What should we include? What should we not include?
What happens if you don't make it by 2024?
If you don't have compliant zoning, you become ineligible for 3 grants from the state. I don't remember what all 3 are. One of them's a MassWorks.
Oh.
And I think there's a land and water, there may be a land and water conservation. I know there's 3 grants that you become ineligible for.
Really?
Yeah. That's the stick.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Or yeah, that's,
Well, they won't have
I
to
guess
buy the
you could look at it as the carrot or the stick. It's a carrot if you say, well, you'll be able to continue getting this money if you do this.
There's no carrot.
This-
An incentive
no, this is-
Because we're already getting it.
or a decent.
Yeah, but this is money that we're currently eligible for, but we could become ineligible for.
Well, it's perfect, not perfect, but at the very least, they put the affordability component in, just for some look at it. If we as a town were to decide that somebody could go in and develop 776 units without an affordability component with it, that 776 raises the amount of housing you have,
Right.
which makes that 10% threshold to be immune from 40B that much further away,
Yep.
which means it's much more difficult to control.
Absolutely.
It seems clear to me that they pretty much had to allow you to require 10% affordability, so that at very worst,
Stay
if
neutral.
you're concerned about that,
pace.
at very worst, you can make sure that you won't fall behind. You won't fall farther behind.
Or you just hope your sewer system never fails because you won't be able to get any help. Back.
But
So
together
I
again.
have a question. I guess kind of how do these requirements compare to some of the existing zones that we have? You kind of touched on that a little bit with talking about just tweaking some of the village mixed use, but like the residential multifamily, for example, like is that how close is that? Is that tweakable to kind of include in this?
our current residential multifamily zoning has 2 ways in which it's not compliant with this. One is density. The maximum density in our RMF zoning today is approximately 7 units per acre, it's between 7 and 8, 7 and a fraction. And the other is you have to get a special permit to build.
It's not my right.
So it's not by right, and it doesn't allow sufficient density. On the other hand, the North Grafton Transit Village Overlay District, which is the 40R at 8 Pine Street, is, except for the size, it's fully compliant. It is entirely, it's by right.
How many acres?
That's about 9 acres up there.
Okay.
But it is by right, and there is no, the zoning bylaw does not specify an upper limit for a zone. It's a minimum density of 20 per acre, but it does not spell out a maximum density. If you do some calculation based on setbacks, building heights, lot coverage requirements, your maximum density in that zone could be over 100 units per acre. You could build over 100 units per acre and be fully compliant with all the parameters of that zone. What they're currently building at 317 units works out to be about 35 units per acre.
So you're saying that the net has to be 15 units
Yes.
per acre by right. And so we could use Pine Street to offset other areas which would be a little less dense, potentially.
That's
Because
quite
there-
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, how does it, is it just averaged out?
Right.
Across
They,
the whole.
they're going to look for, if you aggregate, if you have several different districts that you're going to include in this, if you aggregate that all together, the overall gross density has to work out to 15 per acre.
So how does it
That's
work?
not bad.
So one parcel could be more, another parcel could
I'm
be
just
less.
thinking that gives us some flexibility.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does give us some potential flexibility.
Well, as long as there's 5 continuous acres, you could go to something like 27 Upton Street, while we have somebody in the works, go to town meeting, change it to the zoning, and then get credit for it. And it's already being built.
Almost.
Almost.
Right. I think the only part of the VMUGW zoning district, which is 27 Upton Street, the only part of that that's not fully compliant is it's only 12 units per acre by right, although maybe if you combine that with some others, you get the right average, the right overall average. So, yes, we will be looking at those possibilities, I'm quite sure.
But we
Sounds like
just
you're
need-
going to be busy.
Yeah.
Exciting
We
time,
gotta-
exciting
think
time
we
to
gotta
be
have
on
planning.
planning.
But again, the good news is
Great time.
we have a couple of years to figure this
No,
out.
you don't. You're gonna have 6 months before you have an actual town planner that's gonna have any
Yeah.
degree of
It's about to be
consistency.
2023.
And
Dave, I'm thinking about after all this zoning is in place, this is density by right.
Yes.
So,
and
It's
how'd that
come with
work
the
out the last time
planning.
you did that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it-
true.
Yeah.
Right?
How'd that go?
Yeah.
it's not, this is a lot of work, but that's to set up the development.
lot of
to
meetings.
Do a lot of work.
Yeah.
That all comes to you guys.
You guys got murdered at town
And-
meeting,
and
you
the
just
law-
asked to
right.
do a simple correction to zoning. Somebody said 25 Worcester Street, and
Yeah.
everybody in the 100 people said no.
Yeah, but what if he outlines what we're
No.
losing though?
No, we
Don't do it.
we've got our work cut out for us for sure, but I think
The 120 people that were there.
I know
5
it's
people
crazy
know
that
Mass
that's how many people dictate the whole.
Yeah, but the conservation piece, like, I don't think, if you guys do what you need to do, I feel like this is passable at town meeting, because, like, people are very focused on conservation in this town, and
Right,
if you say we're gonna lose money, opportunities to preserve, people will wanna pass it.
yeah, I mean, and there's
2 years
there's
gets gobbled up pretty quick though.
I mean, not related particularly to this, although indirectly, yes. Touching on something, and I don't want to get on my soapbox here right now, because we're going to have a lot of these conversations, I think, as we get more into the master plan process, because we'll be talking a lot of this. But one of the things, just thinking of density and the current direction of development, if you want to preserve open space, I mean, accepting the fact that more housing is going to be developed here, the question is how.
Yeah.
And where.
Get more of it onto less land.
But if you're interested in preserving open space, you want the developed parts to be more dense, so that you can keep more space open. And density is a scare word, but I think also if we look at the visual aspects and imagine some visual aspects of how denser development can happen and still look more or less like Grafton. I mean, you're not going to preserve Grafton exactly as it is today. There's going to be change.
No, but
But-
we've been aggressively preserving Grafton
We have.
over a lot of years. We just purchased the Robinson property. That kind of almost completes the loop around Silver Lake. So that's been a significant priority in Grafton.
Right. We have approximately 17% of the land area in Grafton is permanently protected as open space for open space recreation purposes. 17% that's permanently protected, and a lot of that is locally protected. The land trust and the town.
Yep.
There's towns that have 70 or 80% of their land permanently protected, but that's like a state forest or
How much is how much is slag
not
from
Grafton.
flexible subdivisions?
But yeah, I think one.
How much is slag from like flexible subdivisions? take like Brook Meadow, for example, which is on a flexible design, and it has a considerable amount of land that was
Yeah.
put in conservation status.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what percentage of that subdivision. I think I have a table at home. I think I have the data at home. I did some calculations a while back for each subdivision, what percentage of it is open space, but I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
I guess it would behoove us just to incorporate the ZBA, the trust, because, you know, we have some ideas about, you know, density and how to, you know, keep us in safe harbor and, you know, make sure that we have the right affordability components, 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, those type of things. And the planning board and the select board and get us in a room.
There are a number of moving pieces, but I mean, since the planning board has, you know, kicked off of the master plan process, there's really a lot that relates to that.
Sure.
The housing production plan relates to that. There's, you know, you can be doing some work in the housing production plan that's almost a duplicate of some of the work that's going to go into the master plan.
I think you've heard me say that a couple times here.
Yeah.
You don't need a master plan. All you need is a housing production plan. You guys are just going to waste money, but that's just one person.
But I mean, I'm looking as part of the master plan process to really take a good look at where Grafton is now, how we've got here in terms of housing and, you know, housing perhaps foremost in mind, but other things too. But yeah, how we got here and what direction are we going, and do we want to continue going in the same direction? Maybe we do. I'm not so sure I would, but I wouldn't recommend that necessarily. But there's a lot that we're going to look at.
The
I'm
old
really getting
master
off the
plan-
topic of our discussion here tonight, but
Well, just in keeping in, the old master plan had us capped at like 30,000 people.
Yeah.
You know, maximum for our current zoning, how everything was ruled out, at a certain point, there would be no more development that could happen that would put us over 30,000. We're almost 20,000 according to the last census. So still another 10,000. That included everything we're talking about now. That did not include that. So not even anything close to that type of density was
Included
included
Pine
in the
Street?
last amendment. Yeah, that was kind of was. I mean, not
so,
tangentially.
right. The old master plan just sort of generally envisioned some you know,
Yeah.
development, sort of village type development going on in that general area. Another thing that's happening, just in case you're curious, is we're having an updated build out analysis done, and it's going to be considering several alternatives. Not just they're looking at not just build out according to current zoning, but they're going to be looking at build, and I think MBTA zoning is one of the factors that they're going to consider as one of the alternatives. But there's several alternatives they're going to be looking at as, well, what if we do this, then what's the build out going to be? What if we do that, then what might the build out be? So we'll be getting some updated numbers on that in the next year or two, however long it takes them to do
Okay.
that.
So we'll keep everybody, we'll try to keep the communication lines open. So,
Yep, that's what we can do, because, you know, there's topics that we're all interested in that overlap.
all right.
And, you know, the more we can get all of the interested parties, you know, sort of keeping aware of what's going on and
You
how
need to go
things are
get
moving.
yourself a town planner.
Well,
Handle some of the coordination activities that might need to take place.
Come on, man, it just happens.
I
It's already been 6 days.
I think I'm sure it's gonna happen, we don't know when.
All right. Okay.
But anyway,
Saying that,
I
2
spent more
years
time
goes
on this
by-
than I thought I was gonna, but
Well, you know,
Thank you, Dave.
I love a good meeting that goes till 10. So
this
Started late.
This topic does tend to raise questions and
It's
pique people's interest.
very interesting perspective, because Mr. Covenant got up here and you know, talked about what I had talked about previously, and these are the type of things that, you know, the town has to accommodate for. Has to.
Yeah. One other point that I didn't put on the slide, but it occurred to me to think about, when you think of multifamily housing at a relatively high density, your mind tends to go to a big high rise. And, you know, one of the things that we will probably end up doing with our however we approach this multifamily zone, one of the things that we may very well end up doing is including some design guidelines. You know, to basically, you know, spell out that we want this housing to look, whatever exactly that form takes, something that would be, you know, would kind of fit with what Grafton looks like, and what Grafton might
It'd
want
be
to
work
nice
with
to
the
have that
ZBA on coming
conversation,
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
actually, because right now we're in this weird situation where density almost anywhere. You know, if you look at the
It's like a naughty word.
immediately adjacent property, it's not going to look like that.
No.
You know, we have that situation over on Peters Way and Pleasant Street. There is housing that looks sort of like what they're proposing in other areas of town, but it's not right next door. So to have some agreement on overall, like, what is Grafton going to look like as we move to this next phase of residential build out, I think is significant value, because then we can have, instead of discussions about individual properties, we can talk about this as more of a vision of what is it going to look like in Grafton and what are the implications of that, because there are significant tax implications like you talked about. There's significant implications in terms of affordable housing and affordability in Grafton in general. You know, we're a bit in kind of competition with market rate housing now, for open space and affordable housing, and because the land is limited, it's a finite
Yeah,
resource.
and Worcester's blowing up right now. They're trying to bring a lot of businesses in there. They're trying to bring lab companies, startups, pharmaceutical companies, but they don't have the housing to do it. So
Right.
Yeah.
surrounding towns are going to be.
Absolutely.
Thing is, we can't make more land.
Dave, I gotta wrap
That's sort of a
this up.
statement of the, you can't make more land,
10 o'clock, that's my,
but you can change your
Really?
policy
Meeting's
about land development.
all right, so, that being said, I'll make sure that we stay in touch and we collaborate. Expect to see something that's an off-agenda meeting or a off-normal schedule meeting when we get the RP, final draft in so we can get it done.
We approve
Got
the
it.
meeting minutes.
No, we're not gonna do that, we're after 10, we'll do the next one, that's fine.
Will you take a motion to adjourn then?
Yeah.
Then I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Right, all those in favor by roll call, starting with Dan,
I
Britt,
Aye.
sorry, Bruce is an aye, Eric,
Swenson, aye.
Off tonight.
I'd
You're
vote
not
aye if I
part
could.
we are adjourned.